Hello there, my name is Richard and a very warm welcome to this Luminar Neo review. So this being 2024, almost 2025, I thought it was time to revisit Luminar Neo. Now, I originally reviewed Luminar Neo when it was first released, however a lot has changed. Since then we have received two brand new expansion packs, the Luminar Neo Extension Pack and the Creative Journey Pass. We've also seen both of those packs discontinued and those features dissolved and added to the very base version of Luminar Neo, making Luminar Neo significantly more specified than it was on its first release. We've also seen the inclusion of Generative AI, namely GenExpand, GenErase and GenSwap. So all in all, Luminar Neo is a very, very different beast to the one that was launched a few years ago, and thus it seemed very much worthwhile revisiting Luminar Neo and seeing how it stacks up today and against its rivals. So what is Luminar Neo? Well, it is a photo editing application for both Windows PC and Mac OS, and it calls itself an effects-orientated photo editing application. So what this means is instead of you crafting your edit using abstractly named tones such as exposure, white balance and tone curves, Luminar Neo offers adjustments such as golden hour glow, mist, dramatic, sun stars and so on, meaning you are able to edit your photo in Luminar Neo while simultaneously knowing very little about photo editing. However, if you are a seasoned photo editing expert, you can still edit your photos the old-fashioned way. Luminar Neo's Develop tab features all the usual adjustments such as exposure, contrast, saturation, shadows, highlights, tone curves, and so on. But what makes Luminar Neo really stand out is its array of AI-powered super effects. These tools include Sky AI, a sky replacement application, Portrait Bokeh AI, Studio Light, Relight AI, and many more. With these AI-powered super tricks, both beginners and experts in a rush can produce highly complex edits, doing little more than clicking their mouse and dragging a few sliders. So if you've got this far into the review and you already like what you've heard, you can try Luminar Neo for free, and in the description below there is a link to your free Luminar Neo trial. Alternatively, drop by the Silent Peak store for latest pricing and deals, and also the facility to try Luminar Neo and many other photo editing applications. So what does Luminar Neo? Well, let's start with photo management. Now in Luminar Neo, photo management is improved but still rather basic. So for example, you can rate your images, create albums and assign any number of your photos into those albums. More recently, we have been given Smart Search. Now with Smart Search, you can use a keyword such as architecture, sky, bird, and say we search on bird. Luminar Neo will search and retrieve all photos featuring birds. We also have the quick filter option. Now, as the name suggests, this enables us to sort our photos by various different file properties. So for example, you can automatically access photos that were taken on a certain date by a certain camera or by a specific aperture or focal length. Now, as you might expect, Luminar Neo is compatible with JPEG files, many different RAW formats, and also Apple's HEIC format. When you have finished editing your photo, you can resize, compress and export that image as a JPEG, a PNG, a PDF or a Photoshop PSD file, and you can export that image to email, a local folder or Luminar Neo Share. So Luminar Share is an iOS and Android app that enables you to trade your images between your smartphone or tablet and your Luminar Neo catalog. Now you can trade your images in both directions. It's very easy to do. However, because Luminar Share does not leverage the cloud, you must make sure that your Luminar Share device and your Luminar Neo equipped computer are both operating on the same network. So with photo photo management covered, let's talk about photo editing in Luminar Neo, starting with presets. Now, Luminar Neo comes stocked with 22 different preset collections, with each collection usually featuring between 5 and 6 different presets. Each preset collection has a various themes, so for example, portraits, landscape, monochrome, filmatic, and many more. You can also save the sum of your own edits as new presets or buy brand new presets from the Skylum marketplace. Overall, Luminar Neo's implementation of presets is one of the best I've seen. The presets themselves are varied and attractive, and all of this makes Luminar Neo one of the best photo editing applications for both beginners and experts in a rush. So with presets covered, let's move on to actual photo editing, starting with Luminar Neo's Develop tab. Now, with the Develop tab, you can use Luminar Neo much like any other photo editing application. Here we can budge exposure, reel in our highlights, boost our shadows, and flex our tone curves. Furthermore, Luminar Neo will react to your adjustments in real time, resulting in a very pleasant and smooth workflow. However, if you are not quite ready to perform your own adjustments the old-fashioned way, you might want to try one of Luminar Neo's many effects-orientated tools. Now, these tools are exceptionally well named and include adjustments such as foliage enhancer, golden hour glow, twilight, dramatic, and so forth. Using these tools is exceptionally easy. Simply open the tool, grab the slider, and pull it left and right until your eye likes what it sees. With these effects-orientated tools, you will be able to edit your photo to a very high standard, despite not knowing much about photo editing. Luminar Neo also features masking, so on one hand, we can apply our adjustments to the entire image or use masks to limit the effect of our adjustments to select areas of the photo. Now, Luminar Neo has many different masks, so first of all, we can just simply brush a mask on to our selected objects. Alternatively, you can select your photo's element by specifying its tonal luminance or color range. But perhaps even easier still is to use Mask AI. Mask AI leverages object recognition technology, which means you are immediately able to sort of mask elements such as the sky, your photo's subject, architecture, foliage, and many more. As with all other automatic masking technology, Luminar Neo's Mask AI's effectiveness does vary on the complexity of the image. However, you can always use Mask AI in the first instance and then fine-tune your mask with a little bit of manual brushing. Luminar Neo also has some layer-based photo editing capability. Specifically, we can add and blend multiple images together and also edit those images independently of each other. To that end, Luminar Neo also comes stocked with a number of effects layers. These include things like bokeh, sun flares, and light leaks. However, it would be best not to confuse Luminar Neo with a full-blown layer-based photo editing application such as Photoshop. For example, we can't apply our adjustments in layers, nor can we insert graphics or shapes. In other words, Luminar Neo is not for graphics design. So let's talk about Luminar Neo's AI-powered super tricks, starting with Sky AI. Now, Sky AI, as the name suggests, is a sky replacement tool, and since it was released way back in Luminar 4, I think, it has been copied many times. However, Luminar Neo's Sky AI remains best in class. Not only is Luminar Neo's Sky AI better able to insert a new sky, but its ability to relight your existing scene to match the new sky is unmatched, as is the ability to cast brand new reflections. My favorite tool by far is Portrait Bokeh AI. So again, as the name suggests, this enables you to blur the background of any portrait you've ever taken. We can control the depth of the blur, the intensity of the blur, and even brighten specular highlights. With Relight AI, you can control the brightness of your photo's foreground and background independently, and this is particularly effective for correcting overly backlit subjects. We also have Face AI. So with Face AI, we can relight your subject's face, we can brighten their eyes, whiten their teeth, redden their lips, and even remove dark circles from under eyes. And you can use Skin AI to remove your subject's skin's blemishes. Now, believe it or not, that is just a small sample of the tools that Luminar Neo has on offer. For example, we also have a focus stacking tool, a panoramic stitcher, an HDR merge tool, AI image enhancement, noise reduction, sharpening and upscaling, Magic Light AI, and a few more still. If you would like to learn more about these tools, it is very worthwhile dropping over to Silent Peak and reading my written Luminar Neo review. So let's talk about Luminar Neo's new generative AI tools, starting with GenErase. Now, GenErase is an AI-powered erase brush, and like most other AI erase brushes that I've tested, is incredibly inconsistent. It is absolutely capable of producing results that previously might have been impossible, and at other times it can perform worse than the standard erase brush featured in Luminar Neo. We also have GenSwap. Now, the swap refers to the ability to add or trade subjects and elements within your photo. So for example, we can take an empty beach and add a rowing boat to it, or trade a normal bird for an eagle. Now, GenSwap is as unpredictable as any other generative AI tool that I've tested. So on one hand, we're not entirely sure what the quality of the result will be. Sometimes it can be rather good and sometimes it can be appalling. But even if it is good, there's no saying that it's going to actually match your creative content. Nonetheless, GenSwap can be very fun, it can be very disappointing, and it can be very impressive indeed. And finally, we have GenExpand. Now, GenExpand works by sort of expanding the boundaries of your photo. So we're not talking about upscaling, we're actually talking about making your photo bigger and adding new content as we do. So this means we can expand our photo's x-axis, making the photo wider. And by doing so, GenExpand will try to anticipate and insert new content as you go. And at risk of sounding like a broken record, GenExpand suffers exactly the same problems as all the other generative AI tools, namely it's entirely unpredictable. In other words, the results range from impressive to awful, and even if you like the quality of the result, it isn't necessarily going to match what you had in mind. So if you like the sound of these generative AI features, it's important to note that if you choose to buy Luminar Neo outright for a one-time payment, you will only have access to GenErase, GenSwap and GenExpand for a limited time. If you would like long-term access to these generative AI features, you should consider subscribing to Luminar Neo Pro instead. So what is Luminar Neo like to use? Well, Luminar Neo features an attractive, well-designed interface filled with sensibly named tools. Moreover, many of these tools feature tooltips plus a brief tutorial explaining what they do. Alternatively, you can jump straight into one of Luminar Neo's included tutorials, which basically guides you step by step through a single edit. Thanks to Luminar Neo's well-implemented preset system and series of effects-orientated tools, editing your photos with Luminar Neo is about as easy as it could possibly be. Meanwhile, seasoned photo editing experts will appreciate the ability to stack their most commonly used tools and adjustments in a favorites list, and the ability to condense once complex tasks such as swapping one sky for another into a matter of clicks. For all of these reasons, I consider Luminar Neo the best photo editing application for beginners and for experts in a rush. So how does Luminar Neo perform? Well, Luminar Neo's performance ranges from excellent to quite poor. Critically, you will find Luminar Neo extremely responsive when doing simple edits. As you apply your adjustments, Luminar Neo will update the preview in real time, giving you a nice, smooth photo editing experience. As you might expect, adding compound adjustments such as Sky AI or Portrait Bokeh AI take just a few moments longer. However, these waits never feel unreasonable given the quality of the result. Unfortunately, Luminar Neo begins to slow the heavier your edit becomes. So let's say that you're editing a portrait and you've applied some some simple adjustments to light. You've perhaps added some portrait bokeh AI, a little Relight AI, and maybe even just a little bit of skin AI. And as you sort of add these effects heavy adjustments, Luminar Neo begins to slow under the weight of all of your edits. Speaking from personal experience, I've never found these delays to be particularly significant, at least when performing realistic edits. However, feedback from users have indicated certain problems, and I've been able to replicate these problems through stress testing. So by deliberately going out of my way to break Luminar Neo, I have actually succeeded. And what will happen as you apply one heavy adjustment after another, Luminar Neo will begin to slow, ultimately becoming responsive and potentially even crashing. However, I would like to reiterate that these were indeed stress tests. I would also like to say that the reports from my audience have been incredibly varied, ranging from excellent performance to very bad. Now, of course, talking about performance is difficult for two reasons. First of all, our sort of expectations of what good performance is can differ somewhat. The other big difference as well is that we're all running different hardware and configurations. Therefore, the easiest way to remedy this problem is before you have a problem at all. And to that end, I strongly recommend you try Luminar Neo before you buy it. And to that end, you can go to the description tab below and download your free Luminar Neo trial. So what is missing in Luminar Neo? Well, not much. In terms of photo management, Luminar Neo remains somewhat undernourished. For example, we still can't apply keywords to our images, nor do we have a face recognition system enabling us to sort of browse our photos by those who appear in them. There are also a number of features that are present but aren't particularly good. For example, Noiseless AI is one of the worst AI noise reduction systems I have tested. It was when it was launched, and it remains so to this day. And if I were to be broadly critical of Skylum software, it sometimes seems that their interest is placed more on adding brand new features than perhaps refining the features they added previously. However, these criticisms feel somewhat mean-spirited given just how much Luminar Neo offers. So what are the best alternatives to Luminar Neo? Well, let's start with Lightroom. Now, in many ways, Lightroom and Luminar Neo are intended for different audiences. For example, Luminar Neo relies on its vast range of presets and its effect-orientated tools to sort of make image editing accessible to all. However, Lightroom is a little bit more traditional, and you still tend to rely on traditional adjustments such as tone curves, white balance, split toning, and exposure. Moreover, Lightroom lacks many of the AI-powered super tricks we find in Luminar Neo. We do have certain tricks. For example, we can provide a little bit of background blur, and we also now have the ability to automatically mask common subjects such as people, sky, and background. However, when it comes to photo management, Lightroom is far ahead of Luminar Neo. For example, we do have the ability to add keywords. We can even geotag our images, and we also have face recognition, enabling you to browse your photos by those who appear in them. But more than that, we have Adobe's Creative Cloud. Now, the moment that you sort of import your photos into Lightroom, you can have them placed in the cloud. And by doing so, you can access your photo collection from any smart device or computer connected to the internet, in effect untethering your collection from your own local PC. Furthermore, we can use these tools to edit your photos remotely or share your images with family, friends, and clients. Unfortunately, it is these advantages that leads to Lightroom's downfall. In other words, Lightroom is subscription only, which means you will never ever stop paying for it. Therefore, your choice between Lightroom and Luminar Neo basically comes down to your comfort with subscriptions and whether or not you want access to Luminar Neo's AI-powered super tricks or Lightroom's outstanding photo management features. Another great alternative to Luminar Neo is ON1 Photo Raw. Now, like Luminar Neo, ON1 Photo Raw is filled with powerful AI super features. So, for example, we have have No Noise AI, one of the very best AI noise reduction systems on the market. We also have Resize AI, a much better AI upscaler compared to upscale in Luminar Neo. ON1 Photo Raw has a superior implementation of effects layers compared to Luminar Neo, and also has a similarly capable portrait enhancer and sky replacement tool. But in many other ways, ON1 Photo Raw and Luminar Neo are similarly capable. Therefore, your choice between these two applications will come down to two things. First of all, ON1 Photo Raw generally is the cheaper option, despite being at least as capable. However, Luminar Neo is much easier to use than ON1 Photo Raw. ON1 Photo Raw's text-heavy, dense-looking interface can be quite unwelcoming to beginners. However, if you are an experienced photo editor, or at least a beginner willing to climb ON1 Photo Raw's steep learning curve, you will find ON1 Photo Raw to be an incredibly powerful and rewarding piece of software. So, to conclude, is Luminar Neo worth it? Well, Luminar Neo's well-designed interface and wide range of sensibly named effects-orientated features make it one of the best photo editing applications for beginners. Yet, even if you are a seasoned photo editor, there is a lot to like about Luminar Neo. Specifically, Luminar Neo automates many of the most tedious tasks in photography. For instance, if you want to perform a significant edit such as replacing the sky or blurring the background, you only need to click a button or drag a slider. Speaking from personal experience, it can be quite challenging to go back to traditional photo editing workflows after using Luminar Neo for some time. Of course, Luminar Neo isn't for everyone. For instance, while improved, Neo's photo management is somewhat undernourished. Moreover, some of its features, such as super sharp and noiseless AI, feel undeveloped and perhaps even neglected in favour of adding entirely new features. However, other features, such as portrait Bokeh AI and sky AI, remain best in class. Luminar Neo's most significant liability remains its performance. Neo begins fast enough, but slows as you add one adjustment after another to a single edit. While I have found real-world performance decent to acceptable, some of my audience has not, and I have been able to replicate their issues with stress testing. For this reason, I recommend you test Luminar Neo on your own hardware and assess it against your expectations before purchasing. Overall, I consider Luminar Neo to be one of the best photo editing applications on the market today. Certainly the best photo editing application for beginners or anyone who prefers to prioritize fast, good quality results over process. Now, at this point, it is important that I point out that I am indeed a Luminar Neo affiliate. However, I am also an affiliate for Adobe, ON1, Topaz Labs, DxO, and just a few more. So I am sort of impartial through saturation. However, if you do not want to take my word for any of this, you don't have to, and in the description below there is a link to your free Luminar Neo trial. If you want to explore your other options, do drop by the store at Silent Peak. Here you will find the best price, promo codes and free trials to some of the market's best photography software. And despite the length of this Luminar Neo video review, it wasn't long enough. So if you'd like to know even more about Luminar Neo, do drop by Silent Peak and my written Luminar Neo review. I hope you found this review useful. My name's Richard from Silent Peak. Thanks for dropping by, and I wish you a very good day. Bye-bye.